Hey geeks, Barry here with Geek Out Studio, and today I'm going to show you how I did my Dark Angel Primaris Captain. Here are the paints that you'll need. Now for this one I did a bit of a conversion work, make him more Dark Angel and more of a true scale. So here I'm just putting I'm creating a lion pauldron, and this is just a bit from the High Elf White Lion Chariot, just glued onto the pauldron. And here I'm using some of the wing bits from the Dark Angel Veterans box. They're meant to go on regular helmets, so I'm just using a Mark 7 Mark 8 helmet. Now the conversion I'm going for is more of a Mark 8 armor, so he's more like a true scale Space Marine than a Primaris. And to do this, I just snipped off the Stormcast Eternal Wannabe knee guards, filed them down, and you'll see this is the final result. It gets you a more true traditional Space Marine knee cap. And since I wanted him to be holding a helmet and resting a sword, I cut off the arm that he already comes with and used the Primaris arm from the Dark Angel box that has the sword kind of propped up on the ground. And so here it's just a matter of cutting and filing to make sure that it fits properly. The next thing I wanted him to do was to be holding the helmet. So here I'm just using the bolter arm that comes with the Primaris Captain. I cut the bolter and I cut the hand off, but they've got like a little wrist guard, so it's a bit labor intensive. It's just a lot of cutting, a lot of filing, and a lot of snipping, but eventually it will work just fine. So, and here is me putting the hand on. This is just one of the open hands from a regular Space Marine Devastator squad. So works great to have him just holding the helmet in his hand. So it goes off of a camera here because it's really kind of finicky, and it's an interesting placement. I just want to make sure that it works. So, and here I'm just filling in the gap with that arm with some green stuff. It's hard to see it even once the model is all completed, but just want to fill it in so you don't have to be too great on your sculpting skills. And now it's time for painting. So I prime everything with Vallejo Surface Primer Gray. Next is the base color. This is Badger's Minotaur's Dark Green. Next I'm doing Zenithal highlight, so at a 45-degree angle I'm using Minotaur Envy Green. It's hard to see because it's really kind of a clear color, but it helps give it a more emerald look to the armor. And then the final color is the Minotaur Goblin Green, sprayed basically straight down onto the model. Now to do the cape and the loincloth, I started with Minotaur's bark, and then I highlighted it following the folds with Minotaur earth, then with a final highlight of Vallejo Model Air sand. For the backside, I use Vallejo Model Air Mahogany. And to highlight it, I just mixed a little bit of white into the mahogany and highlight it following the folds of the cape. So, like I said, here I'm hand painting the loincloth. So again, I started with Minotaur's earth. Because this is a airbrush paint, it's very thin, so I had to put a couple of coats on it. But what's nice is that I use Vallejo Model Air sand, and it's very easy to wet blend the two of them. Now for the face, I use Vallejo Model Color Tan Earth, and then I just washed it with a sepia wash, and then it's just a matter of highlighting and blending with Vallejo Game Color, Elf Skin Tone, and Pale Flesh. So, like I said previously, what's the nice thing with working with the airbrush colors is that they're already very thin. So wet blending them and getting a soft gradient is pretty easy and pretty nice. So, like for now, the shadows might be a little too stark. So what I did was I just hit those shadows with a bit of a thin down elf skin tone, just to blend everything in and not make the shadows so stark. So once that's done, I then do all the soft parts of the neck seal and the joints of the armor using Model Masters Gunship Gray. And then I wash it with just a black wash. And what's nice about the Gunship Gray is it's just a shade brighter than like German Gray. So once I hit it with a black wash, it darkens everything to a near black, but the highlights are still gray to where you can see them. And now I'm doing the leather bits. So I start with Vallejo Game Color Beastie Brown. Then I wash it with just a brown wash and highlight it with Vallejo Game Color Leather Brown. Now for the chest eagle, I use Vallejo Game Color Plague Brown. And then I highlight it with a mix of Plague Brown and Vallejo Model Color Buff, but you can use basically any sand or bone color to highlight it. Now for like the handle of the sword and the rope across his chest, I use P3 Sanguine Highlight, and then I'll wash it with Caribou Crimson, highlight it with Sanguine Highlight with just a little bit of white mixed in, and then again hit it with Caribou Crimson or a red wash. Now for the sword, I went with kind of like actual like hand painted transition. So I started with Vallejo Game Color Gunmetal, and then I highlighted back and forth, wet blending it with Vallejo, not Game Color, but Vallejo Air, Model Air, Steel, Gunmetal, and Black Metal. So, and here you'll see me, I'll just be working between those three colors. You know, going from steel to the gunmetal down to black metal and then back and forth. And then finally, to give it a bit more interest, I went over it a couple of times with a blue wash, trying to keep the blue towards the top. Here, all the white parts get a coat of Vallejo Game Color Wolf Gray, and then it's highlighted with white. So here I'm doing the eye lenses. I started with Citadel Mephiston Red, and then I highlighted it with Model Master, Guard Red, and Final Highlight on Orange. I can't remember the color I used. And now for all the decorative metals. So here I'm using Vallejo Liquid Gold, Old Gold. For the Lion Pauldron, I use Tamiya's Gold Leaf, and then I go over that with a Reikland Flesh Shade mixed with a little gloss medium. And then I dry brush it with Tamiya's Titanium Gold. And to add a little bit of interest and difference, for some of the other decorative metals, I used Vallejo Liquid Gold, Red Gold. Once that's all done, I gloss coat the Mini and then give it a brown and black oil wash. So all the gold and the cloth gets brown, along with some of the bone detail, and then the armor gets a black wash. For the wings on the helmet, I did a light blue oil wash just to bring out the detail on that. After letting that sit for about an hour or so, I then wipe off all the excess wash with a makeup applicator and a little bit of odorless mineral spirit. And then it's on to final assembly. So to make sure that the parts adhere correctly, I scrape off a little bit of the paint so the plastic is exposed, and that way the glue will actually melt the plastic together. And here's the final result. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below. And I will see you next time.